In a fight that I'm sure Steve Mazzagatti could get behind, couple of middleweights ready to hook him up. We've got Chris Curtis putting his 7-fight unbeaten streak on the line, taking on one of the best grapplers outside of MMA, period, Rodolfo Vieira. And the nickname that was always out there was the Black Belt Hunter. In the UFC, they haven't really carried that forward. And I'd say Fluffy Hernandez took that home with him and probably has it up on his mantle. But we look at this fight, Matt, and for Rodolfo Vieira, he beat Oscar Piata and just embarrassed him in his UFC debut. Took on Saparbeg Safarov his next time out. Had the biggest goose egg you've ever seen on his eye that would make Albert Duraev cringe. He was able to go out there, get the finish, didn't need the doctor. The referee was cool with it. He goes out in his next fight, lays an egg, and then his last time out, he picked up a performance bonus by getting a third-round submission stoppage over Dustin Stoltzfus in a fight that he lost the first round, he won the second round, and then ultimately won the fight in the third round. Now, I want to start this video off by saying that Chris Curtis in his picture, his posture is awful. I don't know who said, lurch over there, pal, and we'll take this picture.
Just give him one of these, I think,
I don't know what that's
Give
about.
him one of those, like the fist up.
Yeah, or just
Because they cut someone out of the other side of it, obviously.
No, I'm dead serious.
No, sorry, I'm talking about the Tapology pick.
No, yeah, no. On our graphic, he's very hunched over. But the point being that Chris Curtis is on this wild, magical ride. He watches Fight Night Picks videos. He hates the Allen brothers, but he does like the fact that he was our 2020 Male Fighter of the Year co-award winner, I guess, to speak with Fight Night Picks, or 2021, because I don't know how years work. But when we look at this, Matt, Curtis coming into the UFC, we're saying, okay, 185 is not his weight class, but he's going to take this fight against Phil Hawes, and he was losing the fight against Phil Hawes until he wasn't losing the fight anymore and landed that nice right hook. He goes out there against Brendan Allen. He's losing that fight until he goes out there and he looks amazing, and he's able to really hurt Brendan Allen in the middle of the cage, but especially up against the cage when he ends up getting the finish. But Matt, Chris Curtis, for as good as he is, as 185 is what it is, when you take on Rodolfo Vieira, we know how good he is at jiu-jitsu. And this is a guy that 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014 IBJJF world champion, absolute world champion, 2015 ADCC champ. And the craziest part about it is coming into this fight, yes, he has that win over Dustin Stoltzfus his last time out, but he was supposed to take on Wellington Turman early on in this year. Fight was scrapped. You had Vieira that wasn't able to make the walk. Go over to his Instagram. I'll throw the picture out there right now because this was the post that he had. It says, in a way, because it's all in Portuguese, and I don't know Portuguese personally, but in English I translated it, waiting for a doctor to come and tell me if I'm really, what I really have, and if I'm going to be able to continue fighting MMA. Then 2 weeks later, he posts on his Instagram, first week back, brain is tingling. There was an article out there, he had what's known as a cerebral angiopathy to make sure the blood vessels in his brain are working and firing the way that they should. He's cleared to fight, so he's going to take on Chris Curtis this weekend.
Chris Curtis is by far the best fighter Rodolfo Vieira has ever fought in the UFC, and I genuinely don't even think it's close. Fluffy Hernandez, I think, does have a decent ceiling to him, so maybe he could put it together in the future.
Remember when Piata was a hyped-up prospect?
But this is my problem. Let's go back and look at the spoon-fed opponents Rodolfo Vieira has been given throughout his UFC tenure. Saparbeg Safarov, built like a bag of milk, is not a good UFC fighter whatsoever.
2% or whole milk?
Oh, whole milk without a doubt. There's the most
buttermilk.
He's whole cream if he could be. He's whipping cream. Oscar Piata, again, had hype coming into the UFC, had an awful run once he got here. Anthony Hernandez, at least going into that fight, was seen as, honestly, just the perfect stylistic matchup for Rodolfo Vieira. Hey, Fluffy, you can grapple a little bit. Rodolfo's amazing at grappling.
Fluffy takes some chances on the feet, so does Rodolfo.
Exactly. And that's the fight that we all kind of learned, hey, Rodolfo might be great at grappling, but there's a lot of weaknesses to his game too. His cardio is almost non-existent, and I do think people going into the Dustin Stoltzfus fight put too much stock into that. They said, hey, he got tired against Fluffy. Dustin has kind of one of those pitter-patter styles. Maybe he can take it late. But the thing about that fight was that Rodolfo never really had to push himself in that fight, so I still do think that those cardio questions have yet to be answered, because for Rodolfo, I still feel like the second he pushes himself in a fight, where he starts going for a lot of those judo takedowns, starts going for a lot of those high amplitude, big, explosive takedowns, he's still going to get tired once he goes for 2 or 3 of those. And the thing about Rodolfo is, when you come from a background like jiu-jitsu, we've seen this a lot. Jiu-jitsu practitioners might become black belts on the ground, but then you get hit in the head and you become a brown belt. Then you get hit in the head and you become a purple belt. Strikes in MMA really do matter, and you set this up in the perfect way. Rodolfo Vieira is one of the best MMA grapplers we have ever seen. But being an MMA grappler is very, very different to being a grappler in the gi. And I do think Chris Curtis, with his unique blend of power punching, and Rodolfo Vieira does not like getting hit whatsoever. Good cardio, and I think we can all agree Chris Curtis is a very steady fighter for this division. And great takedown defense. I really do think Chris Curtis, other than the size disadvantage he has going into this fight, this is a great fight for Chris Curtis to get back on the train.
Like, Rodolfo Vieira throws wild, looping, winging shots that sometimes land. Like, you think of, like, other jiu-jitsu practitioners with heavy hands. They're out there. Jacare Souza, heavy hands, pretty technical when he needed to be. Damian Maia could throw some hooks when he needed to.
He likes that straight left.
Close the distance. But Rodolfo does have something that a lot of these pure grapplers don't have. His wrestling takedowns. You look at the fight against Vitaly Nemchinov over with ACA before Vieira comes into the UFC. Power double leg to then grab the back. Like, some people struggle. Like, Tabitha Ricci, great at judo, great at jiu-jitsu. Sometimes she has a hard time getting the takedown. Like, there's some of these fighters that they just struggle in those in-betweens. Rodolfo doesn't struggle with those. So I do look at this fight as Curtis, traditionally, good with his offensive takedowns. Don't see him going for those in this fight. Traditionally, pretty good with his defensive grappling. I mean, Phil Haas went 0 of 3 on takedown attempts.
Pretty good wrestler.
Brendan Allen got tricky. He might be 0 of 3, but there's a point in that fight where he drops down, pulls guard just to grab Curtis's leg, and then he gets him into a leg lock, but Curtis gets out of it. If Rodolfo Vieira gets you in a leg lock, you're probably not going to get out of it.
Tap immediately so you can walk for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be bad. So that could happen in this one, Matt. But we have a look at the odds. And for Chris Curtis, this is the first time in his UFC career out of the 3 fights, I guess. Open minus 180, minus 160 right now. He is the favorite. Rodolfo Vieira, open plus 155, plus 133. We have a look at the Topology votes. Surprise to us as they are to you. I'm going to say over under 62.5% Curtis.
I think it'll be 50-50.
50, well,
not at all.
602 total votes, 81% Curtis, 86% by knockout for the 19% that have Vieira, 87% by submission. Matt, Craig Allen, one of those guys who would pull a promo before a Fluffy Hernandez fight to say how hot Rodolfo Vieira is right now, only for him to lose. So I've been on this Vieira train for a very long time. Do I pick Vieira in this fight? What do you think?
I'm not going to. I didn't know Chris Curtis wasn't a fan of the Allen boys, but I hope he's going to be a fan of this prediction.
After the Haas and Allen fight, he was in the comments section. But he did repost our Fighter of the Year thing. He did like that.
Hey, Chris, you're an awesome fighter. I've never thought other than that. This is the thing about Rodolfo, and I kind of mentioned it. He hates getting hit. Like, to Brock Lesnar levels, does not like getting hit. And that's the thing. Jiu-jitsu players don't have... they don't really have a tolerance to being hit. And it's nothing against it. It's just the truth. In boxing and kickboxing and Muay Thai. Pancration even. You have to adjust yourself to getting hit at a certain point. And I just think Rodolfo, he waited until he was like 30 years old to then start to adjust himself to then getting hit by guys at the UFC level. And I think Chris Curtis, if he hits you once or twice, is going to make you reconsider your MMA career. And he's probably going to make you want to start grappling a lot more. So if Vieira gets the first takedown, if he doesn't have to think too much about it, then I think he can have a lot of success. So I'm going to break this fight down like Robbie Lawler, Nick Diaz, because I remember clearly saying I think Nick Diaz can look good, but once anything bad goes for him, he's going to quit. And luckily, that's exactly what happened. He broke his nose and he quit in that fight. I think Vieira has kind of that mindset. Like, if he gets hit early, if he gets that big mouse on his eye again, if he does break his nose, I don't expect him to then rally past that and get a submission. So I do think Chris Curtis, if he can have success early, can carry it late. And I don't think Vieira can have that same type of longevity in his game plan.
A man that did a big-time promo for Vieira only to land on my face. Then when he fought Dustin Stoisfuss, I still picked him to win. It hurts. It hurts, Matt. So for me, I have Chris Curtis. The reason why is the fact that his striking style lends credence to a win against a guy like Vieira. What does he do so well? Well, when he stands there in southpaw, he throws that lead right hook on the in-betweens when guys are coming in. He also counters with the left of the body, and he'll rip that in open space too. He works head-body to great effect, and that's what ended up hurting Brendan Allen. It was going to the body, coming up top, wobbling him, going back up against the cage, and then throwing uppercuts and everything he can in the clinch. For me, I like Curtis in all of the in-betweens, and I like him in open space. I like Vieira with his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu, so I have a hard time. I think we're going to get a finish in this fight. I don't see it going to decision. If it goes that way, it would knock my socks off. But I'm also in agreement. I'm going to go with the action man, Chris Curtis. I can't wait for the fight. Both of us going with the man that trains out of Syndicate MMA versus the guy who's working out with former lower league NHL, adjacent leagues, Matt Schroy at a Fusion XL in Rodolfo Vieira. It's going to be an amazing fight. We have some big-time fights up at the top. Headlined by Tsarukyan, who's taking on Mateusz Gamrot. Let's keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.